Hey everybody, it's Janice from the Anadarko Community Library, and today is Wednesday. That means it's Trivia Day. I thought we would start this series with some trivia about the libraries. And not this library in particular, but just libraries in general. And I'm not going to claim authorship for any of this information. It's all out there, and you can research it and find even more interesting facts. But here's what I found. So the first library in the U.S. was actually one that was started by Benjamin Franklin, our lovely founding father, and he started his own lending library. It was in 1731 in Philadelphia. However, it was a subscription. It required a subscription fee. The subscription fee back then was 40 shillings. So you could subscribe to his library and borrow his books for 40 shillings. That doesn't sound like a lot, but in today's dollars, that would have been $410 just to borrow library books. Now, when he died in 1790, he had donated his books to several institutions, and there in Franklin, Massachusetts, they actually opened a public library using his books where folks could borrow and lend his books. So that was kind of interesting. The next thing that we have up is the philanthropist Andrew Carnegie. He was a one-man library funding machine. We talked about how there weren't that many libraries because it was real expensive. Well, between 1886 and 1919, Andrew Carnegie donated $55 million. That's $55 million. In today's dollars, that would be $1.6 billion to open 2,509 libraries in the U.S. and across the world. So that was really interesting, and so obviously I'm kind of a Carnegie fan, just for that fact. Now he did fund several of those libraries in New York City, and those buildings often were construction with apartment buildings up on top. The rationale there was that the librarian would have to live up there on the top floor, and they would have to come down and keep shoveling coal into the furnaces at all hours of the days and nights. So needless to say, I'm glad I'm a librarian in 2021 and not back then, because that would not have been fun. Okay, next up. Librarians actually had to adopt a particular style of handwriting, and they call that librarian hand. It was prevalent in the late 1800s, and it was library pioneer Mr. Dewey of the Dewey Decimal System, that guy that was really into making sure everything was in order and in place, and making sure that all the I's were dotted and the T's were crossed, so to speak. He actually believed that legible handwriting was a must for librarians. So at a conference in 1885, librarians spent 4 days holed up in 200 miles north of New York City, and they were discussing all kinds of things like the significance of whether or not there needed to be a separate reading room for women, and handwriting, of course, came up. So this is when they started determining what they wanted for librarian hand. So I'm going to show you, this is another reason I'm glad I'm a librarian today and not back then, although it would have been really nice to be able to write this neatly. So this is what they call disjointed hand, or printing. And then you could actually also use this joined hand, which is what we would call cursive. Now, it's so much easier today on the computer to use different fonts and sizes. You can have cursive or all different kinds of script for yourself, but this is what they actually had to use as a librarian. Can you imagine the amounts and the time it would take to do just one library card, or to transcribe one set of meeting minutes in this hand? So that was kind of interesting. Okay, let's see. What else do we have here? So the Library of Congress, we all know that that's the largest library, and they have more volumes and more types of books than any place else in the world. And the Library of Congress is so devoted to making knowledge available to everybody that it pays many magazines to get their reproduce their magazines in Braille, so that those who are not sighted can read those magazines. In 1985, an irate senator from Ohio lobbied to get them to stop publishing the Braille version of Playboy. However, they reinstated this practice of getting Playboy transcribed into Braille, and it continues to be published into Braille today. So kind of an interesting little factoid there. And number 6 on our list is the popular genres for prison. You know, prisons have big libraries, and that's a lot of the folks avail themselves of the prison libraries to learn and to study and do all kinds of things. But the most popular genres in prison libraries are paranormal romance, young adult titles, and the Left Behind series. So that's quite a little span of different types of reading. Oh, this is a good one. So if you're wondering how dirty library books can become after passing through many hands, the answer is really, really dirty. Libraries have found everything from traces of cocaine to bed bugs in the pages of their books, but there has never been a documented case of anyone catching anything from a library book. And to that end, just so you know, we here at the Anadarko Community Library quarantine every book. When you bring it back, every book, every video, everything you bring back in, you check in, and then we quarantine it for 10 days. During that time, we actually clean it. We've got these big book erasers. We have Clorox wipes. We have this adhesive that takes things off books. There's all kinds of different things that we do to keep those books clean for you. But just thought that might make you rest a little easier. Okay, so the next thing is returning books. Remember earlier we talked about that $410 subscription fee to borrow books from Ben Franklin? I'd hate to see what his fines were. So we all know about fines, and we don't want to get fines on our list or our permanent record or whatever you want to call it, but it's never too late to return a book. In 2015, a student at Wakefield High School in Wakefield, Virginia, sent back a copy of The Underside of a Leaf. Sounds like a real page turner. She had borrowed it in 1981 and just got it mixed up with her books and forgot to return it. But the oldest book that was returned was in 2016, the granddaughter of the man who took out, this is a real great title, The Microscope and Its Revelations, from the Hereford Cathedral School in the United Kingdom, returned the book after 120 years after it had been borrowed. So can you imagine what that fine would be at 25 cents a day? And if you're into something just a little bit livelier, as far as our little information trivia here goes, if you want to go to the Lillian Goldman Law Library in Yale University, they allow you to check out General Montgomery, AKA Monty. He is a border collie, terrier mix, and a certified therapy dog. And you can check him out for 30 minutes of companionship. So we don't have therapy dogs to check out here, but we do have a lot of fun things and interesting things. So stop in and see us and get your library card, get it up to date. And if it's not, check out some of our books. And we'll see you again next week for trivia time. Bye-bye.